Okay, let's have a word of prayer. So gracious God, we come before you at this time. Bless this time, the words that we share together, that we learn more of your love. Amen. Okay, Exodus 20. Is this one working as well? Oh, I was going to put that on as well, wasn't I? Boom. Oh, that one's working. Exodus 20, we know about that. We know, first of all, where we are in the Bible. And we mentioned last week, we came to look at the law, as Chell said, the 10 best ways of living. There. But actually, we have two stories today. First of all, from the wandering in the desert, when we have the law that is given to the Hebrew people, but also from up here. And this is a story of when, in this period of the judges, before there was a king, then actually the people of Israel were actually at war with their neighbors, the Philistines. And what happened there was a big surprise. The covenant box, which contained the law, the prophets, a bit of manna, they got nicked by the Philistines. And that's used as a passage that gives us a bit of an illustration of what's happening here. So we have, are we working? We are very slowly working. We're not working. Please work. Please work. Please work. Ta-da! Here we go. How about that? We have the verse again. And God spoke, and these were his words. I am the Lord your God who brought us out of Egypt. You were slaves. Worship no God but me. Right, I have got a roving microphone and I'm not afraid to use it. You've just arrived. You want to go straight out the door now, don't you? I've got a roving microphone. I'm not afraid to use it. So we're going to have a look at some of the things we see on the screen to do with this, the first of the 10 commandments. And what does that actually mean? I mean, it's packed full of stuff, this, and we explore this together. Right. What do we mean by God? Oh, straight in at the deep end. Who's going to tell me what we mean by God? You're going to tell me what you mean by your shoelaces, aren't you? For those who are doing Andrew preaching bingo, the shoelaces have just arrived. Okay, what do we mean by God? In fact, there's clues in this passage. Particularly using this passage, what do we mean by God? You'll get the idea. Okay. God is truth, intimacy, and salvation. In this passage, truth, intimacy, and salvation. So the truth is, when he says, I'm the God that brought you out of Egypt. It happened. It's something that's verifiable. It's something that is in the folk memory. They know that is what makes them the Hebrew people. In one of the Monty Python films, which I'd love to show in church, but the language is so atrocious, someone convincing people that he's Jewish says, I'm a Red Sea pedestrian. Actually, yes, this is what determines the Hebrew people, the flight from Egypt and now the giving of the law. So the first thing we know about God here is it's something to do with truth. And that's quite important because who can remember from my previous sermons, everyone's looking at shoelaces again, what the word devil means? What does the word devil mean? Da, 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 da. Someone who lies. Someone who lies. The deceiver. The person who lies about you. Diabolos, Greek. Hey, I'll be doing my homework. Don't say it has to happen once. Okay? Diabolos, the one who deceives. So when we know about God is true, then there's an intimacy. There's an intimacy which I think we sometimes either miss or we do too much of. We either miss when we come to worship God because we use the word Lord. If you go back to the reading itself, you'll see that was this going to work? Do you do that? Will it do that? Ta-da! You'll see that the word Lord is in capitals. Who can remember from my previous preaching? You see, you have to listen. Why we have the word Lord in capitals in the Old Testament in particular. Oh, we've got one over there. Trouble is, he's also a biblical scholar, so I'm not sure that counts, but there we go. Why do we have Lord in drop capitals in the Old Testament?
Oh, which is the name of God.
It's hiding the name of God, yes. The name of God, which we sort of think is Yahweh, is 4 letters put together in Hebrew alphabet, which might or might not be pronounced Yahweh. Now, of course, one of the commandments is don't take the name of your Lord of God in vain. Jewish tradition is we don't say it at all. So in many translations of the Bible, it's hidden by Lord. However, what we find is that God gave his name to Moses. And when you know someone's name, you know quite a bit about them. If they give you the name, then it's something, there's a degree of intimacy about that. And we remember that this is the God who at the time of the fall wanted to walk with the man and the woman in the cool of the day in the garden. Isn't that something wonderful? And didn't we mess it up? However, so we have a God of intimacy who wants to know us, who gives of himself to us. In first instance, gives his name, and because we know the end of the story, gives us himself in the person of Jesus. So God is truth, intimacy, and then obviously salvation. And on this occasion, he's talking about bringing people out of slavery in Egypt. So even an understanding of God from this passage only, it's packed full, from the 3 verses that we had, it's packed full of an understanding, first of all, of who God is. God is truth, God is intimacy, and God is salvation. And that's just from this passage alone. Just think what would happen if you read the whole Bible. Then what? Then there's worship. I was going to ask what you thought worship was, but I clicked too many times there. There we go. Okay. Many, many times over the years, I've listened to preachers talk about worship and gone, yeah, sort of. And so here are a couple of the yeah, sort ofs on the screen for you. The first one is to think of worship as worthship. We bring God what is worth. Well, of course we can't, can we? However, we bring to him something to God to say, you are great. You are worth everything we have. This is why I particularly chose I Will Worship as one of the songs this morning. And those of you who missed it. It's a cracking song. Okay? We bring ourselves into worship, which is the second point here. Now, someone more intellectual than the first person, and I'm not claiming it to be me at all, says actually in a translation, one of the translations that they have of the Bible, is not sure which one it is, worship is the word for I come forward to kiss. I come forward to kiss. We're back at the intimacy thing again, aren't we? But this, we are giving something. We are giving something when we come to kiss. Now, we're not talking about what's his face from the Spanish, was it the Spanish Football Association? Because that wasn't giving, that was taking a lot, wasn't it? That was bad. Okay, but normally when we come to kiss, we bring of ourselves. So if we're talking about worship, we're trying to somehow in our tiny little mind explain what God is worth, and somehow bring something of ourself and takes my full attention. Now, I will give you, I'll confess to you now, coming into worship on a Sunday morning, my worship quite often does not take my full attention. My worship of God quite often doesn't take my full attention. Is the guitar in tune? Will I remember how to play the organ? What's that dreadful sound from the sound system? Why are these people late? These things take my attention. And so sometimes my time of worship on a Sunday morning, will there be cake? Oh, squirrel! But if we are to worship wholeheartedly, let it give us, you can do things that take your full attention. Sometimes intricate hobbies take your full attention. When I'm working on a Land Rover, it takes my full attention, squirts me in the face with oil. So you can give things your full attention. And maybe, as part of what we're doing this morning, is to work out when we get that wrong. Ooh, little bit of spoiler for later. Okay. So what when it goes wrong? Now, we had that passage, did we not, from 1 Samuel, where a couple of things went wrong. First of all, the Israelites took the covenant box into battle. Well, that was smart, wasn't it? Take your most precious thing off to battle. And of course, in some respects, that's misusing God. Using God as a talisman, not as God. Not bringing worship, but saying God is on our side. But then, because the Philistines were worshipping Dagon, it went wrong for them. Falsehood was revealed. Now, remember what we said about God. First thing we said about God was what? Some of you have been asleep since then. No, what? What did we say? Truth. The first thing we said about God is truth. And so when put the truth of the true God is put next to this Dagon statue, the falsehood is revealed. It falls over, can't stand up. So when God is put against falsehood, the falsehood is revealed. When we get stuff wrong, we won't hide it. The falsehood will be revealed. If we are worshipping something wrong, it will come out. And then, of course, there's the punishment. First of all, the punishment is that the god idol falls over and smashes, and those who are around there all got themselves some sort of tumors. Now, those who have looked very carefully at the text think there are a lot of mice around, and therefore it might be the bubonic plague. Now, don't fall asleep just yet, because you still have to do some work. Someone really is looking at their shoelaces at this moment. I'll come to you later. Okay, so what about now? What about when it goes wrong now? Ooh, right. Who, what might we actually worship by mistake? I have a roving mic and I'm not afraid to use it. You're putting it, oh, you scratch your head, I thought you put your hand up. Okay, who or what might we worship by mistake? Those shoelaces are getting so interesting, aren't they? If I don't get any volunteers, I'll pick on some. Oh, we have a volunteer.
Ourselves?
Ooh, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Anything else? One over here.
Those who command our full attention.
You are?
I was thinking of those things which try to capture our attention and take us away.
Okay, so take our attention away from God. Oh, sorry, hold your head. Okay, anyone else? Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, over here. Yes, thank you. The toe is getting better, but unfortunately the nerve is healing faster than the bone. That's not good. Ooh, money. Hold that thought as well. Anyone else? Okay, well, what I put up here is not the definitive answer. It's just things that came to me late last night where I thought, bother, I'm supposed to be doing a presentation together. Okay, that never happens. Thank you. Money, sex, and power, to start off with, tend to be the false gods. And if you look at a lot of TV dramas or films, the plot lines are all to do with money, sex, and power, aren't they? In one form or another. Now, I remember when I first started in ministry, blimey, a key thump, pounds, shillings, and pence in them days. Okay, I remember when we first started in ministry. After the first couple of years, I was sent off to what was called the NAM conference, the Newly Accredited Ministers Conference, or the Probationers Conference. So, like, right, you've been doing job for 2 years, let's go and talk about this. And Godliff, the head of ministry of the Baptist Union, had us in a room, and we had a sort of fireside chat, and he said, don't make shipwreck of your ministry. In other words, keep your eyes on God. Don't be diverted, particularly by money and sex. No chance of getting power, nor you lot around. Okay. No chance of much money either. There we go. Anyway, so don't be diverted. Now, here's the thing. I've lost touch with some of the people I trained with at college, but my mentor minister had a year group of 8 ministers. And by the time he was into ministry by 6 years, of those 8 ministers, 2 were still in ministry. The attrition rate is outrageous for all sorts of different reasons. I can now say, a few years on, my mentor minister is no longer in ministry, and the other one is a university tutor, so half counts. Of 8 people in 1 year's training for ministry, no one is doing this job anymore. And money and sex got in the way for quite a lot of those people. Those are the temptations. Those are the temptations. They're very, very real. And when we give them our attention, particularly my job or anyone else's job, they become overpowering and take us away from the reality of the true God. What's behind the question mark? What's behind the question mark? Any ideas? Hello, Eva. How was Ghana? She wish you still here. Yeah. Sorry, I've got a job for you, but not this one. Okay. What's behind the question mark? Okay, let's move to it. Who said it? Yay! Top of the class, I shall have the apple later. Ourselves. Ourselves. Thinking about this in preparation for this morning, what is it that takes our attention? What is it that takes our attention more than takes our attention on God? It is ourselves, in some form or another. Ourselves, money, sex, power, body, skill. I will be okay when. You see, actually, I will suggest that in place of putting God at the forefront of our worship, we put our future. I'm sorry, I think I've got the reading teeth in at the moment. Okay, we put our future selves as what we worship. Explain a bit what I mean by that. Quite often, we have ideas about what we're going to do. Maybe New Year's resolutions, don't do them. You'll just make yourself so depressed. But I will be okay. Now, I put that wording there because back in the 70s, when people doing sorts of keep Richard on his toes over there, we're wandering around. Okay, well, there was a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay, and the idea was to try and work out, actually, we get to some sort of understanding that we don't need to rush around with our lives, and you don't need to change, and I don't need to change, effectively to be okay with God. But we don't believe a word of that. We don't believe a word of that. There's always another project. I will be okay when I'm rich. Who remembers Only Fools and Horses? We're watching it on streaming at the moment. Oh my word, a little bit dated, but still very poignant. This time, Rodders, next year, we will be what? Millionaires. Always looking for the next thing. A little bit like Luke Skywalker, okay, remember when he to Yoda, and Yoda punched him in the chest with his, where it said, well, this one, never content with where he is, always looking ahead. And we're like that. I'll be fine when I get some money. I'm not fine now. I'll be fine with whatever sex life I want. I'll be fine with power. A little bit more, tweak the carburettor on the Land Rover, a bit more power. Carburettor, who understands that word? One person. 2 people understand the word 3, but she's trying to say she doesn't. Okay. I will be fine when my body's the shape I want it to be. Get myself down the gym and off the pies. on a diet. This is the curse, I believe, of a generation leaving school, going off to university, the body image nonsense. I'll be fine when I look like them. And all the ridiculous things that people do with surgery and all the rest of it. I'll be fine when I've mastered this skill. Convince myself sometimes I'll be better able to worship God when I can play the organ properly. And when I'm practicing, yes, I do. Thank you. When I'm practicing, yes, I do. I do every so often wonder, am I really doing this to the glory of God? It says it on the side of the organ there, the plaque there. But constantly keep ourselves in check why we are doing something. Is it sort of a veneer of worship? Or is it because I quite like playing the organ and I quite like the sound of it and it's a nice heritage thing and all those things? So I think we spend a lot of time worshipping our future self, not ourselves as we are, but our future selves. And we put our attention, we put our energy, we put our money, we put our time into making ourselves, in our eyes, better than we currently are. Because we listen to the diabolos, the false god. Because we listen to the falsehood that we are not good enough. Not good enough because we're not rich enough. Not good enough because we don't have whatever sex life should be. Not good enough because, what's my job? Do I have any power? Well, good enough because, for pity's sake, too many pies. Not good enough because, frankly, I'm no good at anything. Not good enough until I change. Remember what we said first thing about God? Truth. And we listen to the lie that we are not good enough, particularly for God. So the consequences are we never realize how much God loves us. We never get into that wonderful, intimate space with God, which he calls us to, because the lie is we don't belong there because we're not good enough. We don't get punished by tumors. We don't normally get punished by stuff falling over. But our punishment for worshipping the false god of our future self is self-inflicted. It's self-inflicted because we believe a lie instead of the truth. And that is that for the moment. We come on to our prayers now. I need that again. We're going to come to a time of prayer now. And again, this will be slightly different. No one of us actually put in to do repairs this week. People like us all have better things to do, apparently, or weren't around.